Seems today that motorsport has quite the problem with absolutely absurd rules that the regulators have added for seemingly no reason at all. It's like the FIA got bored, so they just decided to invent some rules for the fun of it. I remember in 2022's Monte Carlo rally, after Sébastien Ogier got a reprimand for driving away from the start ramp under internal combustion power rather than electric power from the hybrid system, that one person made the comment, "It's getting to the point now where we'll be seeing notes from the FIA like, the driver of car number 1 closed his door aggressively." I remember a joke I made during the World Sim Series 6 Hours of Spa
Interesting line for the braking there.
drivers briefing where I said, in qualifying, only gears with even numbers will be permitted to be used. But it really feels like that sometimes is what motorsport is like now, and if you think Formula 1 is bad with these nonsense rules, wait until you see some of the absurd regulations in sports car racing. So what is it that's got me wanting to put the rulebook through a paper shredder and then eat the shredded paper? Well, let's have a look at this weekend's Monaco Grand Prix. Pierre Gasly tried a more aggressive form of weight reduction on lap 16 by removing his front left suspension and the front wing. This made the car significantly slower though, so he was forced to retire from the race instead, driving the car back to the pits instead of parking it on track and forcing a safety car. Martin Brundle was absolutely furious about Pierre Gasly driving his damaged car back to the pits, and made his thoughts on Gasly's driving of a damaged car absolutely clear for all viewers to hear. This is after last year, Sergio Perez was given a 3-place grid penalty for driving his damaged Red Bull back to the pits to retire. But Martin Brundle has been commentating in Formula 1 long enough and has driven in enough races in Formula 1 in his decade-long F1 career to know that this is a rule the FIA invented about last Tuesday or so. Driving a damaged car used to only attract a penalty if you disobeyed the black and orange flag, which exists for a reason. No black and orange flag, no penalty. In fact, Michael Schumacher drove back a car that was damaged in pretty much an identical way during the 2004 Monaco Grand Prix, and although Brundle had much to say about Schumacher's heavy braking behind the safety car, and he made some good points there, which caused the crash, he had no criticism of him driving that car back to the pits whilst damaged, but he certainly made it clear in 2025 what he thinks of this practice. Anyone who drives a car which is damaged beyond repair back to the pit lane instead of stopping on track must be a total madman, like this nutter in the 1989 Australian Grand Prix.
Martin Brundle in major trouble, no rear wing, he's gone off somewhere.
Well, I'm sure Martin Brundle will be incredibly furious at Martin Brundle for this display of driving. But in the 2025 Monaco Grand Prix, common sense prevailed actually, and Pierre Gasly was not penalised for driving a damaged car. Good choice by the stewards, and a terrible choice by the stewards to penalise Perez for the 2024 Canadian Grand Prix. Although the Canadian Grand Prix has had many moronic stewards' decisions. But it's not just the damaged cars rule. The mandatory 2-stop strategy did nothing to improve the racing whatsoever, a move that literally everyone predicted. But Formula 1 is not the worst in the world when it comes to absurd regulations. That crown, of course, belongs to sports car racing. So let's have a look at the World Endurance Championship, because there's some true insanity going on there. I'll start with the safety car procedures, just like the FIA does every time there's a light drizzle. Like Formula 1, WEC has the full safety car, which at Le Mans has a special procedure, but I'll talk about that later. Generally, it's like an F1 safety car. A queue forms behind it, but there's 2 other types of full track neutralisation. There's the full course yellow and the virtual safety car, which has absolutely nothing to do with the F1 VSC, and is a completely nonsensical rule trying to fix a problem caused by another nonsensical rule. In the World Endurance Championship, you're not allowed to make pit stops under the safety car. They claim this is because it gives unfair strategic advantages and makes a safety car a race to the pits. Now this seems fine so far, but then you realise that WEC is fuel limited. You can't go 6, 12 or 24 hours on one tank of fuel, so you have to refuel the cars. But what about if you're low on fuel and the safety car comes out? Well, they have a rule called the emergency pit stop, where you can refuel your car under safety car conditions, but you're only allowed to fill the tank by 5%. Then you have to come back in as soon as the safety car comes back in to fill up the rest of the fuel tank. If you have to take an emergency pit stop, your race is therefore ruined. So there's still strategic advantages and disadvantages to the safety car. If the safety car comes out and you've got plenty of fuel, you're in a good position. Especially if you pit right before the safety car comes out. Especially if you just cross the pit lane speed line right as the safety car gets called out. Because this allows you to catch the queue of cars whilst nobody else behind you is allowed to pit. So they'll all be on old tyres with no fuel. Oh, but it's not fuel, it's virtual energy, of course, because they have to call it something different. Got to make the stupid rule there. For BOP reasons, they can still call it fuel, but it's got to be virtual energy. Yes, we know it's a hybrid. This makes explaining the WEC to any new fan basically impossible, as there's always another stupid rule to explain when explaining a stupid rule. So what did the ACO and FIA do to fix the issue of the emergency pit stop rule? They created the virtual safety car. Unlike Formula 1, the virtual safety car procedure starts by requiring all cars to slow to a speed limiter set to 80 km per hour, the exact same as the full course yellow procedure. However, under VSC and full course yellow, you may pit, and everyone does, but the difference is, after a few laps of VSC, it is then mandatory for the race director to deploy the full safety car, which then stays out for about half an hour or so, even when the incident is clear, making you wonder why the safety car is still deployed. Then it goes to a regular safety car restart. But what about Le Mans? An actually good rule has significantly reduced the number of full safety cars at Le Mans, the slow zone, which forces a speed limiter on a localised section of the track. But when a full safety car is deployed, that's when the longest safety car period ever will commence, because this is the most convoluted thing I've ever seen. Because Le Mans is nearly 14 kilometres long, there's actually 3 safety cars on track with 3 separate queues. In the past, this broke up the pack when the safety car was deployed. If you got into the wrong queue, you could lose massive time on the car in front. But they made a fix, which of course had to be as convoluted as possible, because of course it would be. They would first have the merge, where safety cars 2 and 3 would pull off the track, and the 2 other queues would join safety car 1's queue. Then they'd do a wave-by to let the lap cars through to keep them from splitting the pack. Then, once they've done the wave-by and the lap cars rejoin the back of the pack, they have an hour-long period of great mystery, where the safety car is still on track without explanation, and then finally, the safety car is called back in, and the race resumes. In the 2024 Le Mans 24, the safety cars actually ran out of fuel, necessitating the deployment of safety car 4 to join the track as well. But what about the rules regarding who can drive the car? There's some endurance racing classes which require amateur drivers to make up part of the lineup. The FIA has a classification system from platinum to bronze. Bronze drivers are amateurs, silvers are either young amateurs or poorly performing pros, gold drivers are fully professional racing drivers, and platinum rated drivers are the elite drivers of sports car racing. SRO GT3 racing used to consist of some pretty simple classes. There was the Pro class, which was open to any driver, usually consisting of gold and platinum drivers, although some amateur drivers would compete in the Pro class, but would be at a sporting disadvantage by doing so. You're better off competing in the amateur class that can actually win. Then there was the Pro-Am class, where the lineup would be split between professional and amateur drivers, usually 2 pro drivers and 1 amateur. Then there was Silver for silver drivers, and Am reserved exclusively for bronze-rated drivers. But now we have still the Pro class, that's pretty much as it was, but also the Gold Cup. Now, that sounds good, it's a cup for only gold drivers. No, you're wrong, it's actually for driver lineups featuring 2 gold drivers and then a silver or bronze driver. And then there's the Bronze Cup, where platinum drivers are paired with 1 bronze driver. So you'd think that the Silver Cup would feature something like a silver and a platinum, or a mandatory bronze. After all, the other classes are like that. No, you'd be wrong, the Silver Cup is just a class for silver drivers. Makes sense, right? Don't you sometimes think that the rule makers maybe need to sometimes take a break from making rules and go out for a walk or something less annoying instead?